Hello, friends. My name is Steve, and we're here today to discuss the Thousandfold Thought and the Prince of Nothing trilogy. We are finally at the end of the Prince of Nothing trilogy, and it's the last 100 or so pages. Was it chapters 14 through the end? Quite a bit happens. Just quite a lot of information in these last few chapters, but I'm sure we'll talk about that. It's my first time reading this trilogy, and we're here with Daniel and Katerina. Daniel, will you give us an introduction?
Daniel and I have read this trilogy, both of the trilogies, a couple times, so I know the second apocalypse a little more than these guys.
Maybe just a little.
A little bit.
So hi, I'm Katerina. This is my second time reading The Prince of Nothing, or second time having finished The Prince of Nothing. And what can I say? Like, I finished it on time. I have notes this time, so it should be fun.
And before we get into the Thousandfold Thought, the last few chapters, just want to mention that we will be taking a week off next week, and then we'll come back the following week to start the first couple of chapters of the second apocalypse. The first book is The Judge and I think. Yeah, cool. Yeah, so if you're reading along with us, kick your feet up for the next week, and we'll be back in a couple of weeks. So, Daniel, what did you think reading this one again for the fourth or fifth time?
You have to go first. News first.
Well, okay, so part of me wishes that we had more of this sprinkled through the whole book, because there's lots in these last few chapters, and there's some stuff that I didn't understand, which I'm sure we'll get to. But I'm satisfied. I feel good about the way it ended, but I kind of want more. I feel like there's a lot that's carrying over into the next series. Like, we had a lot of answers, but there's lots of things that have happened in the trilogy that we just don't know about a whole lot yet, unless I missed it, which is totally possible too. So, but overall, it was satisfying, just not as much as I would hope it would be, if that makes sense.
I think that's a fair assessment. I can honestly say for myself, I don't think I'm any wiser reading this book for the second time than I was the first time I finished it. Like, if anything, I have more questions because there are just a lot of things that I didn't pay attention to on my first read because I thought for some reason I thought they were irrelevant or just not important to the plot. And they may not be as important to the plot of the first trilogy, but having read a little bit of the subsequent series, I have so many more questions about so many things that were just like mentioned here and there throughout the like last 100 pages.
Huh. And I think we just so happened to stop at the right place. I think this chapter, and chapter 14, was a perfect place for us to kind of leave that last lump that we were going to read. It's because it seems like all this information just poured down in chapter 14 right away. So, I don't know if that was by accident or if you both knew that and just planned it that way, but worked out. So,
It was a broadcast. It was fast. These chapters went by really quickly. Jumping from 3 or 4 vantage points, it seemed like 3 or 4 different places.
that was I thought, very cinematic. It felt like a movie, like jumping back and forth like that, and that worked really well. I really liked that because we were getting bits and pieces, and they weren't too long. They were just long enough to get an idea of what was happening all at the same time.
Yeah, I'm happy that I didn't have to read like 50 pages of just battle, but maybe I would have appreciated to have a little bit more page time with Callis and Moangus. Like, it felt like their conversation was just like, for the amount of information that we got from it, it felt maybe a little bit too short or too scattered throughout the whole thing.
I wonder how much of the battle that we really needed. I think it went on a little bit too long. I think it was a little overstuffed. But I'm not a huge fan of battles anyway. But I think that like you said, I think it would have been better to have more of that conversation. But during that conversation, every word in those is like packed. Like every word is heavy.
I have so many quotes.
Okay. Where did you guys want to start?
I thought a lot of what Katerina thought about this reread, though I might have less questions than her. But there was a lot of future information. And like you said, we didn't tie a lot of those like more outlandish strings together, but this series is just a replication of a historical event with like insinuations of something greater, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but I mean, at the same
Because
time,
all
sorry,
this
go
stuff
ahead.
happened in history, like these battles all happened in history, and now that I guess we finished this first series, you can go look at stuff on the First Crusades and see the correlation. But now the First Crusades are over, so we'll see what happens next.
Yeah, but at the same time, I like as much as the Crusade is like the overarching plot of the trilogy, it also feels like, I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't feel very important. Like that's not really what the story is about. Like it's almost like this, especially after read like few of the books in the second series, like the Prince of Nothing trilogy starts to feel as almost as a prologue. Like it's just the beginning, it's just a teaser of the things that actually matter or are going to matter.
Oh wow. It's a long prologue.
Like it's just a setup for the second series. At least that's how it feels to me at like this point in my journey with the second apocalypse.
And I agree with you, Katerina. I think the Holy War, it was just another tool, right? It was just another tool that Kellis was using to his own ends. He was playing a long game, though.
Well, that's the thousandfold thought for you.
Yeah. So the first note I had was from Espinette, because she's having these desires, and she's kind of like this leftover from her body being taken over. At her journey, I was hoping she would have more to do in this last little bit. I wish she would have had a bigger role to play, but maybe she does in the second series. But I was hoping that she would be more of a. She plays an important role, but I wanted her to have more substance, I guess, in these last little bit.
I think that's a fair point. She does not have much to do in the last few chapters, but I guess you could say that most of her arc has already happened. Like we have seen her go from the harlot that who everyone despised to becoming Kellis's empress wife, like one of the most powerful women in the Three Seas. So I guess there's not much further for her to go at the end of the book, or in the last in the last 4 chapters. I mean, the one thing that's important to her character in those last chapters is that she again is forced to make a choice between seemingly dead Akamian or being loyal to seemingly dead Akamian and Kellis, who represents the sort of I don't know, luxury, power, wealth, everything she's kind of been hoping, aspiring to her entire life. And once again, she chooses Kellis. What a surprise.
What do you think, Daniel,
I was
on this read?
I was glad that nothing bad happened to her these last 100 pages.
That's fair. Yeah. She survived.
I mean, it's a nice change from being constantly stoned and assaulted and sold,
Yeah.
starving.
Abused, losing your shoes broken. I, in a way, it kind of felt like she went backwards in a way because she, I don't know if she realized or if maybe I realized that she had really she didn't have as much control as she thought she did. She kind of felt like she's still under Kellis's thumb.
I feel like in the last conversation she had with the commune, she did come to the realization that Kellis did not love her, that he was manipulating and using her. And I think the question for her was whether that actually matters. Like even if she's being used for being a woman or for because she's an intelligent person, like if that gets her the things that, if that has given her power, if that has given her the status she has, like does it matter? And I mean, I don't know if that question is answered, but I think that's kind of the dilemma that's standing in front of her.
Still kind of thinks Kellis is like the savior and she's having his kids, even though she's decided that the savior is like not the best thing. Because even Akamian still thinks he's the harbinger and he's like come to save them from the second apocalypse, even if he is manipulating everyone somehow, just because of his Seswatha dreams, which get more intense at the end of this book.
There was a section here. I'm not sure. It's on page 288 in my copy, but I think this may play into it with the whole Espinette thing. Is there was rapture in submission, the vulnerability of another towering overhead, precarious like letting a stranger touch one's face, the sense of profound communing as though only those who acknowledge their insignificance could themselves be acknowledged, the relief of surrender, the disturbing that accompanied the yielding of responsibility, the paradoxical sense of license.
I guess there can be something
when she's
freeing in being a slave.
Guess.
Like you don't have to think about a lot of things if there's another person making those decisions for you.
That's true. And that's when she's bowing to Kellis. Is that when that happened? And Kellis tells her to don't fear the future. The flesh is but my shadow or something.
Yeah, I did not get that part. I didn't. I don't know what that's supposed to mean.
So yeah, so there's okay. There with the heavy stuff. I'm not sure where you guys wanted to start. There's a lot to take apart. So I guess it's where do we start with that stuff?
We're talking about Espinette, so I guess let's talk about Akamian.
Okay.
Since he's there, stumbling into Confus immediately after him and Espinette do whatever they do.
They coupled.
They're married, so
I like
that
that's your
weird,
preferred term for that.
Coupling.
Oh, well, no, never mind. Never mind. Well, I mean, just before that, like going back to the comment, just before that, Nayor tells him about Kellis and his true nature, so to speak.
Yeah, and I think at one point he says, "What do you have that he hasn't taken from you? He's taken your wife. He's taken your magic. Now you're just like an old, grumpy guy."
Yeah, I got a little bit confused, I suppose, about why it was Nior's revelations that finally made Akami and realize that Callus was manipulative or not the good guy he was trying to convince Akami he was. Because it seemed to me that even in the part we read last week, Akami was sort of already realizing, or at least coming to that realization. So I didn't quite understand like what was like what changed in Akami's thinking. Like what was it that Nayor told him that he didn't already know, or that made him change his mind finally?
I think it was when they first started talking, the first thing he basically asked him was whether it was a lie what he said to get himself into the Holy War, whether he had dreams of the Holy War, and whether he was a prince or where he was from. And so that was his big questions. And then the revelation that he was like dunning some other 2,000-year hidden monstrous group that lied about like having the dreams, basically being a prophet, and the fact that he was already doubting everything.
So does Akamian not believe that Callus is a prophet anymore? Like but it seemed like he still sort of thought that Callus might be somehow connected to the apocalypse, or even have been sent to prevent the apocalypse from taking place.
I think there's a difference between a prophet and a harbinger. Tellus will bring about the, the second apocalypse, and he might be smart enough and strong enough to stop it, even if he's the worst human being in the world. Because the Kamian renounces him, renounces his school,
His wife.
everything, except books. He never renounced books.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not that last little bit with the last few pages with the came in was a little, I don't know. It seems like with Espinette and with the came in, it seemed like they had drank the Kool-Aid and they were all in with Kellis, and then Noir comes and tells came in a few things, and then he changes his mind. It just seemed like a little sudden because they both seemed like they were all in.
I think it made more sense to me with Esmenet because there were already some hints, or like you could see her sometimes thinking that Kellis didn't quite love her, or kind of realizing that maybe he only wanted her for her body, or like her breeding capabilities. But as I said, like in the end, like she makes the decision to stay with him. So it doesn't really matter for her.
And I think it came in just since he had his one thing he cared about taken from the other thing he came to care about. I like had a grudge. There was already a chink in the armor of his like unfounding love for Kellis, and he had to look at it every day. And even in the previous chapters, he would like think bad things, like I could burn them all. I could just take her away. So even though he was teaching Kellis and he knew Kellis could see what he was thinking pretty much, he was still thinking it.
I mean, I found the last few pages, the part when he's saying like I renounce my school and I renounce my prophet. Like I found that very powerful. Like because we've kind of gone from the commune, the cynic, the one who does not believe in the consult, who thinks that, you know, the second apocalypse just like it's not going to happen, it's very unlikely to happen. He goes from that to having complete absolute faith in Callis, and then finally going back to the cynic or disbeliever again. I did find that powerful.
What'd you
Him
think?
like, sorry.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that I think at the end of this book, he is probably the only person of at least of like the original cast of characters that we encountered who, well, apart from, well, I don't know, maybe newer, I guess, he's the only person who has actually come to see Callis for who he is and who is now able to see through his deception. Everyone else has succumbed.
That's a good point.
Maybe estimate to a varying degree, right?
Not enough to renounce.
She's carrying a baby Maisonette, half Dunyan.
Yeah, that was another one. Big surprise there about Mathanet being Callus's stepbrother.
I mean, there are some hints, but very, very subtle. Like he's from the south, but he's apparently very pale. He's very tall, and his sermons are mesmerizing. So if you try really hard, maybe you can put two and two together. But I was, when I read the book for the first time, I was completely shocked. Like that thought that he would somehow be related to Kellis never occurred to me. Like for all I knew, I thought that Mathanet was somehow like an agent of the consult or something like that.
He did spot a Camian, right? He knew that he was one of the was it the few, or I forget what the
Yep.
term. So he did spot him, but I didn't put that. I mean, that was, you knew that there was something different about him, but we rarely saw him the whole time. So, but yeah, I'm sure there's little hints. So, so Noir, he's running around with his skin spy and his skin spy girlfriend and his gift, and the other skin spy looking for Kellis. And so when he and Moingus are reunited in the cave, yeah, that got interesting.
I thought I was not going to cry this time. I still cried. It's one of the most heartbreaking scenes for me in the entire trilogy. The two of them reuniting. Like you think that New York coming in, that he's gonna just kill Moengus immediately, and then you realize that maybe the one thing that he wanted the whole time was just a hug. I mean, it breaks my heart. Like it generally, like I don't know that maybe not everyone's like a big fan of New York, but like he's one of the most fascinating characters for me in the entire series, and I just like, you know, not to diminish. I'm not trying to diminish any of the horrible things he does. But don't laugh.
The many horrible things he does.
Okay, he's a horrible person, but I also empathize, and it's just really sad to realize, like, to just read again and again about how broken he is and how he takes it out on the world around him and the people around him.
Yeah, Moringus revealed his new truth pretty quick, that the truth stays there when you search for it. If it's a lie, it'll just wash away. So the fact that he's been struggling with it forever means it must have had a lot of truth to it. And he wasn't the breaker of horse and men, really. It's just a lie. What was his pet name? Neu? Neu?
Yeah, that's what broke me. It was so sad. No. Yeah, and then he. Well, it's not very. It's kind of confused, but I think Moing is already dying because Kellis stabbed him, and then I think Nayor he finishes Moingus off with the Kore, if I understood it correctly. And then he's like, "Please don't leave me again." Hmm.
And then Serway showed up. She put her face back together.
Yeah. So after that last, so the lights went out, right? The light. So he's in the cave, in the darkness.
Yeah.
With the two captive skin spies, the corpses, and the two skin spies that he was running with.
I think one's dead. One got his face burned off.
Oh.
One just got knocked out or something.
Yeah, I think Serway got knocked out.
But yeah, he's down in some crazy mine. Some really old mine.
Not a human-made mine.
Yeah, it talks about some impossible light he sees just hanging in the air. When it talks about the bays, well, I think that was when the Kenyan was having the dream, when they were finally like seeing all of Golgotha.
That was pretty messed up.
Yeah.
It talked about how when the ark fell out of the sky, only 1 in 100 Inkarai survived, and still 1,000 Inkarai fought in the battle.
And now there's only 2 of them left.
Yeah. So it went from 100 million when they came through the sky, because 1,000 is 1 million.
I guess. Is it? Yeah, I guess.
1,000 is, yeah.
I'm here to read books, not do math.
It's a lot. Basically, just a lot of people. I think they called it an ingrown world or an ingrown planet or something inside of the ark.
I think, yeah. Then they refer to it as a wound, right? Like a. I forget the exact word, but.
Yeah, the dead womb. I think we mentioned it last time.
Oh yeah, and they called it the ingrown world. That's what they called it. I guess if there was 100 million things living in it, it's enough to be a world. And then the deception of Seswatha gets figured out in the Camian's dreams.
Does it? I got very confused in that last part.
Yeah, I was confused too.
Where the king realizes that he's not really there to save the girl he's going to save, and Seswatha's like, well, if you find her, she's not going to be the same. We actually need to get the Heron Spear. And then there was another dream afterwards, yeah.
Yeah, that was the one where I got confused.
Yeah, I was lost.
So it seemed like... So it was the same dream that we've already went through a couple of times. But this time it seemed that the no god was speaking through the high Katerina king.
So it was like a after they usually wake up. Because I don't think he had ever mentioned seeing like the carapace of the no god. Meaning he'd like see his chest, he was close enough. And then he was yelling for him to use the hair on spear, and he was speaking the no god's voice along with all the dead and all of the strength, trying to figure out what he was.
Yeah, those sections I got a little lost.
Yeah, I noticed that the dream was different, but I don't remember if I thought maybe we saw him throwing the spear in one of the previous dreams, but I don't actually remember. But I definitely the no god was not speaking through the hiking.
On the plains of Mengeda, he dreams of his approach because that's where it happened.
Right.
But it doesn't go that far. And who knows what happened. I guess we know that the no god died somehow.
Yeah, it's the dreams. Like I'm never sure if it's supposed to be mysterious or if I just don't remember what we already know.
And then I think Akamian thinks this is not how it happened at one point, even while he's dreaming. Meaning maybe he's seeing a further dream of some truth that got covered up with some lie scriptures, some lie stories.
Yeah, I feel like that's something that's more like it's not supposed to be resolving anything. Like it's more of a setup for the next books to come.
I want to ask if that gets explored more, but I probably shouldn't.
What?
The Saswatha dreams and the Hedron spear, and I'm guessing it does, but
I mean, do you want to know?
no, we'll find out here in a couple of weeks.
A long time ago, I said that Bakker doesn't write things for no reason. So, if there are unanswered questions or just mysterious things, maybe they're there for a reason. Not that he's not vague a lot of times. I think he likes to let the mystery of your mind lead you places, so he's vague a lot of times about things. There's one part where a boy is scooping up the salt of this dead wizard or mage, and that was pretty weird.
And the bird came with the little face. And do you want to know a secret?
Yeah, what the hell what the hell is that supposed to be?
What, the bird's secret?
Yeah, like
Yeah,
what is he telling him, and why would he tell this random kid on the street?
my guess is that it was a terrible secret and the kid didn't walk off the street again. It's a random guess, but I don't think you approach a thing with a human head and a black bird body and anything good happens.
Nothing good'll happen. It's bad news.
And Raul will tell you that.
Yeah. Rest in peace.
There's a lot of rest in pieces this chapter. The Ikari dynasty. Rip. I guess you're still surviving. You're the last remaining Ikari.
Yeah, I'm making my allegiances clear. Making my claim to the throne. But I mean, do you understand why I hate Saban so freaking much?
So I have a question about Saban. Let me pull the page because I was sure to tab it because I knew we're gonna mention it. Because whenever Saban gets mentioned, I pay attention. But it's on 382. It reads, he saw King Saban leaning from his saddle, his face ruddy with murderous intent. The more than sun glistened in the man's blue eyes. He saw the broadsword that took his head. I read that as Saban was dead, but I think I misread it because he's there at the end.
Yeah, it's no, he decapitates Confus.
I misread that one. So.
Yes.
Confus was doing the seeing.
Yeah, it was from Confus's POV.
Yeah, I totally misread that part.
Confus couldn't use a sword. Let's be serious.
I mean, he did kill the skin spy at the end of Darkness with his sword.
It's true.
But to be fair, like, I mean, that's the thing I like about Confus. Like, he's not a warrior. Like, his strength is entirely in, like, he's not a warrior. He's a great general. Like, his strength is not that he can come somewhere and swing his sword and save the day. Like, he's a thinker. Like, he wins his battles through his intellect, and I like that. That's what makes him interesting. That's one of the reasons why I think he's a great character.
But he wins battles with checkers intellect, and Kellis is playing chess intellect. He could never win a battle of intellect against Kellis, so he just ran away screaming and claimed he was the winner. Like a good delusional leader.
Yeah, I mean, I think...
And you're referring to him in the present tense. He was a thinker, was a leader. He did win battles.
It's true.
Well, thank you for driving that deeper.
I'm sorry.
No, but I think I guess I kind of agree with what he said. The way I read it is where I thought the way I think about Confus losing in the end is that. Well, I mean, I think we mentioned it's at different points that, like, Kellis, like not Kellis, Confus is this mantra that war is intellect, and Kellis, at one point, I think in the Warrior Prophet, says that war is conviction, and I think what Confus shows is that, like, you can be a smart guy, you can devise the best strategy, but if you don't have people who believe in you, like people who will obey or like who will believe in you enough to listen to your orders and do what you need them to do, that it doesn't matter how great your strategy is, like, you're still going to lose. And I think by the end of this book, Confus forgot that he spent so much time trying to convince himself that, or trying to believe in himself, that he forgot to make sure that other people, the people around him, still believe in him as well. And that's why he lost, in my opinion. Whereas Kellis, the whole thing, everything he's been working towards since the very beginning is to have people believe in so much that they would be able to, they would be willing to sacrifice anything. And that's how he was able to prevail.
That makes Confus's last scene make a lot of sense, right? Because he gets up off the ground, and he's like, "Why aren't they listening to me? Your God's still alive." And then they finally start listening.
Yeah.
And the Achaemenid gets taken away by Zeus, the Sifrang. Does that make sense to you guys?
Those were some weird POVs. Like, I don't understand really what the Sifrang. I mean, I guess they're kind of demons from the hell. But the sections, the passages with their when he's flying around, and it was really hard to imagine. Well, maybe that's the point. Like, you're not supposed to be able to grasp what it is to be a demon that's been pulled to the earth from the outside.
Yeah, it describes it as like flat at times, but ever stretching outward. Meaning it's coming from the outside. I think one time they call them godlings too. And two of them died inside of Shime, and Zeus escaped. Aeacus wanted him to go kill Achaemenid, so to finally get his revenge. More important than winning the battle.
Yep.
And then I kind of think that he was taking Achaemenid to Aeacus, but he had already just been injured too much, and the loss of blood just caused him to crash dead with Achaemenid in his claws or hands, whatever this crazy demon thing has.
Yeah, I was confused as to why he didn't kill Achaemenid immediately, but I guess it makes sense that Aeacus would want to exact his revenge on Achaemenid
Eyeballs.
in person.
He wants eyeballs. He wants to shove his eyeballs in his eyeballs, just like wait, they don't work.
But I mean, that's just a vicious circle. Like, Aeacus takes out like Nemus's eyeballs, then Achaemenid venges Nemus by plucking out Aeacus's eyeballs, and Aeacus takes his revenge on Achaemenid. That's just a vicious circle. Like, who's like there? Like, whose eyeballs are gonna be next?
An eye for an eye till there are no eyes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There's just going very quickly back to Confess and belief. There's like a nice quote from Moangus about that. He says, page 331. He's explaining to Kellis that when men stop bowing, the emperor ceases to rule. When the whips are thrown into the river, the slaves cease to serve. For an infant to be an emperor or a slave or a merchant or a whore or a general or whatever, those about him must act accordingly, and men act as they believe. The identity of men is determined by beliefs, the assumptions of others. This is what makes them emperors or slaves, not their gods, not their blood. So I guess the people just stopped believing in Confess and stopped believing that he was there. He stopped believing in him as their emperor.
Beliefs beget action. Well, the quotes I had written down too. So.
Yep.
Yeah, those sections with Tellus and Moangus, I think everyone wishes they would have been longer, but as the writer, it's like writing two people smarter than you at the same time. like nearly impossible. I feel like he said he would write like 50 pages and keep like 3 of Kellis's dialogue.
Really?
So it took a lot of attempts to get the wording of someone smarter than him correct.
Yeah. I like a part of me would like to have more of them, but another part of me is like it's not necessarily that we've heard everything before, but it does read as sort of like a summary of the thesis of the whole trilogy. Like it's kind of like if you still haven't understood what I'm doing here, like here you have it, like on the page, like this is what we've been doing the whole time. So there were some parts that I thought were maybe a bit repetitive, or like just things that we've like if you've been paying attention, you've been able to pick up or piece together yourself. But it does make things clear, or it does make you, it does help you make like a more whole picture of what's been happening and what Callas and Moengas have been up to behind the scenes the whole time.
What did you think about Moengus' dead end, Steve?
One of the things I enjoyed most about that whole exchange is that Kellis was finally talking with someone who he couldn't. I guess he could manipulate him, but someone on his level. I think that was the most exciting part of that. So the way that I understood it was he was holding the Skin Spice captive, but he was also holding someone else or another group captive too, right? Or did I misunderstand that?
No, he was only holding the Skin Spice captive down there.
Okay, the ones that were chained up and the corpses that were there with them.
Yeah.
I did like. So the tree, is that like the tree of life? Is the way I took it, because he goes under the roots of the tree and travels down, with his lantern, and finally his lantern goes. But Moengus doesn't have eyes. He just knows it by heart. He knows where he's going without having to see. So yeah, that whole exchange was really just. I think we were complaining there wasn't enough of it in a way, and we wish that there was a little bit more. But at the same time, what's there is a lot. So
Yeah, I just thought it was a tree, like a random tree. I didn't think there was anything else to it, but now that you mention it, I don't know. Maybe there is something special about it, and I just missed it.
And there was the branch, there's the twig that has the brown leaf and the green leaf on it.
Yeah, that was very reminiscent of the prologue. But in the prologue, he gets completely enthralled with the twig, and he spends like weeks just staring at the twig. And here he picks it up, looks at it, and throws it away. Like it's almost like I don't know if it's supposed to like symbolize how he's mastered the world outside of the fish wall.
He runs so fast that rabbits have a heart attacks trying to get away from him.
Yeah.
He's mastered the wild, maybe.
Yeah.
Or something. Is he mad? Do you think Kellis has gone mad like his dad suggests, or what?
I think he's the next step. But I did, going back to kind of what Katerina mentioned about belief. When Kellis came back, he called himself a prince, and that automatically gave him credibility because everyone thought he was a prince. I thought that whole section when they discuss nations tolerate only those beliefs that can serve the great system of interlocking actions that make them possible. That was really interesting. But it made sense. Kind of his strategy for the way that he would, um, set his plan into action.
And then we learned, like, a couple chapters ago how the Sishwaram magic was kind of different and it required, like, passion and heart.
Not something the Dunyain are known for.
Yeah.
So it turns out Moingus doesn't have very much water, even though he's super smart. Cut out his eyeballs, which allow him to, like, completely read people's faces.
Yeah, but we were right when we said that he was the Kisharim that met with Xerius, the Emperor, in the darkness that comes before. It does get
Malahat.
confirmed here. Malahat, yeah.
That Moingus was the one who met with him?
Yeah.
Oh, I missed that.
Yeah, his name was also Malahat, and that's Moengis' name among the Kisharim. And I think they mention in the darkness that he's very pale and has swazans on his arms. So it's that kind of gives it away if you know things about Moengus.
I missed that. I'm really bad with all these names. There was something else that I wanted to ask both of you about. On page 312 of my copy, they're trying to figure out where Kellis went. Nor and I think Espinet. So they're trying to figure out where he went. He says no one knows. Most think he goes to speak with God. Why do you think that? Because he said he goes to his father's house. So do they consider Moengus a god? Is that?
It's Kellis using truths to just manipulate people. Yeah, he's got to go see his father, but he tells everyone that and they win the war. He just consulted with the actual god, the Tusk god.
Yeah, I mean, he's the prophet, so it makes sense that at least in a symbolic way, the god would be considered as his father. So I think when he tells them that he's going to his father's house, they don't they just assume he's referring to the god and not to his actual father. Like, why would his real father would be in Shaima when Kellis has come from the north of the continent?
Did Kellis seem startled that Nair and the Skin Spices were there? His dad heard him first, but
yeah, the Skin Spice could smell him. Sorry, could smell him the whole time.
Or maybe that little seed of going to talk to his father was meant to get to Nair. I don't know. Kellis did seem like he had to be quick with his chat. He's like, I don't have time to play these dumb word games.
Yeah, I guess he did kind of Noir's. He could have let him there to kind of close or stop that arc, Noir's arc. He, finish that circle for him. Otherwise, he'd always be an issue for him. I'm guessing he's still alive. He's going to make it out of the mines or the caves or whatever it is. But
who, Naor, or?
I'm assuming he will.
From the sounds of it, Stairway can smell Kellis from like 150 miles away. So I think
Yeah.
she'll smell her way out of that cave or that mine.
Well, he was going to slit his own throat, so there's that.
A nice final swazend.
Yeah. Well, he already had one on his throat for Serway, I think, like a small one, not too deep, but still.
So the whole idea behind Kellis's motivation is to wipe the slate clean, right? To kind of start over from scratch. Is that because he had the Holy War, and his whole goal was to bring these two forces together to have them both kill each other, and then have a clean slate where he can reestablish or bring about a new age of thinking and a new age of new ways of thinking, I guess. But is that kind of the gist of it?
I don't know that I know what Callus is thinking at all. There is this whole thing about him hearing the voice, well, hearing some voices. He seems to suggest that the voice he hears is the god, but then we also know that he's heard the no god's voice before, and he seems to not agree with the consul's plan to eradicate most of the population of the planet they're on. But what is his end goal and who's actually talking to him, or is he just insane? I'm not sure I really know.
It's once he finally mentions, it's like, have you heard the voices too? He's like, what? Are you crazy? So his father grasped parts of the Thousandfold Thought, whatever that is, which what you're thinking, Steve, might be along the lines of what it is. Just breaking down the Phantom and the Enrithi into one something that is easily shapeable.
Because he's
so who knows? Whatever the Thousandfold Thought ends with. It appears as though Kellis thinks he definitely seen a lot further into the Thousandfold Thought than his dad did in the end.
Or is he just crazy?
Or is he just crazy? But then he mentions that his dad, knowing the monstrosities of the Dungeon, needs to do what the consult needs to do and shut the world from the outside. Otherwise, his soul is damned as, like the Inkarai, is damned as the non-man. It's bad. Whatever his soul is in a bad spot. And then
I thought that was really interesting.
With the talk of the Sifring and all of this talk of the outside, does God exist?
Well, even Moenga seems to acknowledge that the outside is real. But I guess he kind of disagrees with the way it's generally described by the Enrithi or by the Phantom.
Yeah, he calls it fractured or shattered.
Yeah, he says
shattered mirror.
He says the world is open and our souls stand astride its bounds. But what lies outside, Callus, is no more than a fractured and distorted reflection of what lies within. I have searched for nearly the length of your entire life, and I have found nothing that contradicts the principle. I have watched for years, I have counted, and the world shows no favor. It is perfectly indifferent to the tantrums of men. The god sleeps. It has ever been thus. Only by striving for the absolute may we awaken him. Meaning, purpose, these words name not something given, they name our task. That's very loaded.
Yeah, I was just about to say it's very, very loaded.
But Kellis disagrees, right?
Yeah, I think Kellis seems to disagree that the world isn't different,
It's
or
definitely true
that
that
there
he
is no
can,
judgment.
but Moingus tries to use the point that their ability to like move nations just with their words is proof otherwise. That the darkness does what determine what comes before, so they can manipulate it. There's no outside streams pulling anything. That's what he's saying. Like, I've searched for years for outside streams pulling this world in a direction, and it just doesn't exist. But someone's talking to Kellis, so that seems like a stream.
Someone or something.
Things. I don't know. Is God? Would you call God someone or something?
Well, I guess it depends on if he likes me too much or not, I guess.
And he seems to be callous. I mean, he seems to be suspiciously certain that he is not insane. That the voices that he's hearing are real, and that he has somehow been chosen to save the world. I guess at least that's what he says. Like it wasn't clear to me if he actually means it, but that is what he says to Moangus.
There's also a part that I thought was weird that we haven't connected yet anywhere, but Kellis is walking down towards his dad and he like sees some kind of mural on the floor, and some other voice tells him to walk around it, and he like skirts around some mural on the floor.
So the mural was figures with lances and a lion. There was a character, I forget, I'm bad with names. There was a character that was referred to as the lion during the Battle of Shimei.
Oh,
Shimei.
that's Dead Compass, the Lion of Teeth.
Oh, okay.
I think
sorry.
aren't there 2 lions? There might be 3 lions. No, wait. I think the Padiraja is a tiger. Well, Confis was referred to as the Lion of Cayuth, but I think I might be wrong, but isn't Sabon's standard? Isn't there also a lion on Sabon's standard? Maybe, or did I get it wrong?
I'll have to go back and read exactly what that mural was. It talked about a lot of engravings on top of engravings.
But I would say I think it's fair to say that those murals predate the Holy War by a lot.
Yes.
I thought it could be like a some kind of time travel. I mean, this kind of story, my mind goes a little off the rails with what things could mean. But the fact, like you mentioned, Daniel, the fact that whatever he writes, there's a purpose to everything. That has for him to take time to describe the mural has to mean something, right?
Oh, I did. Yeah, I was right. The Sabon standard is the red lion. So it's a clash of lions.
They're different than the Lannisters. But...
Yeah.
There is speaking of Kellis doing weird things, there is another passage when he's traveling to um, to the city, to the ruined city. He's just walking through on the plains, and he's shouting like around as if he's talking to someone, the world, like the god, I don't know. And he's saying something about like what was he supposed to do, or did I do the right thing? Let me see if I can find it.
I remember that part.
Yeah, I think he says something like, "I know you can hear me. I know you listen." It's somewhere like right before he's chasing the rabbits and the jackals.
Yeah,
In
when
chapter
he
14.
kills Confucius Kidrahu.
No, it's Callus.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, that, yes.
he
Yeah, I
does
think
kill
somewhere.
Kidrahu.
Right, sorry, you're right.
Yeah, he appears to be talking to someone. Kind of
Yeah,
seems mad.
it's on page 289.
Oh yeah.
He says, "I know you can hear me," he said to the world, dark and sacred. "I know that you listen. What was I to do? They attend only to what lies before their eyes. They listen only to what pleases their ears. Things unseen, things unheard. They trust to you." So it seems like he's talking to the god.
Maybe he believes in this outside and the damnation of the soul, and he's looking for ways to repent. It's like, I'm sorry I used entire nations as a tool, and I pretended to be a false prophet. What else was I supposed to do?
I mean, interesting.
Or maybe he's talking to the no god. Maybe he's saying that to the no god and not the god.
Yeah. I wonder, like, if the Dunyain are damned, like, I have to wonder what kind of horrible things have they done that are even worse than what we already seen happen during the Holy Wars march.
It gets worse.
I think they kind of like killed all of the kind, kindness, and I don't know, like the way God wants you to be, like a loving person.
Hmm.
There's no love in them.
I get maybe the bottom line of my question is like, who decides what is good and what's bad? Like, how does one get, who decides, or what are what are the rules? Like, what do you have to do to become damned, apart from becoming a sorcerer, obviously?
The Corey worked for everyone, right? No matter what God you worship, the tears of God still work.
That I think that same voice is on 322. This is when he's in the cavern. It says, "They gathered here in the hundreds." A voice called across the gloom, clear despite the ambient rumble. "Even thousands in the days before the womb plague."
I think I just assumed that was Mwengus speaking to Kellis.
Yeah, he says at last. And it's a Cumeric voice, which is like his own dialect.
Oh, okay.
So he finally decides to talk to Kellis, and he's telling him what he's looking at.
The womb plague.
He refers to the, what is it, the something Inkarai Wars, almost as if it was like another apocalypse. He says that, then the first apocalypse, and now the second apocalypse. are all the times that the non-men fought the Inkarai.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry too much, Steve. Like the first time I read this book, all of this went straight over my head.
You just need to think in the context of the first book. Who is the enemy in the first book? The Padrija. or Kellis, one of them.
Yeah, I was gonna
A lot,
say.
a lot of this book is about, like, I think even Melingus is talking to Kellis, and he says, like, is he born in Reethi or is he born Sylvendis? That's going to determine who he kills, like nothing else.
Yeah.
So
On 375, he talks about they discuss to shut the world against the outside, to seal it through the examination of mankind.
who talks about that?
That is Kellis and Moingus, I believe. Yeah.
That's what Kellis predicts that the Dunyain would eventually do once they found out about the outside and the possibility of damnation, right?
Yeah, I think so. But Kellis also tells him, after he stabs him in the chest, I am more, the warrior prophet said. So yeah, you do wonder if he's losing his mind or if he's more.
Yeah.
I guess that's the question that makes us want to read this next series. There's no Kain Empire to worry about. They did reach Shimei. Not much will be left of Shimei. Doesn't appear like by the end of this battle.
No, there isn't much left of it, I don't think.
Yeah. I have to say the scenes with Proyas hit me quite hard this time. I'm not known as the biggest fan of Proyas, so I didn't quite expect that. But there was something very tragic, like reading about him coming to Shaima, like finally laying his eyes on the city he's been dreaming about these years previous, and it's just like it's all a ruin, and there's people looting and raping, and I don't know, when he says like this is Shaima, it I felt for him in that moment, and also for the fact that, you know, regardless of how pious he is and how much he has tried to do the right thing, at least according to his morals, like he's still, when he enters the house with the two women are hiding, and he's like, they're so scared of him, and he looks at him, like he looks at his hands and they're covered in blood, and he realizes that like he's been going through the city and massacring people, and that like that's how, like that's the way he's entering the holy city, the sacred city. I felt very sad for him, and well, for the people in the city as well. But it was quite disheartening watching him in that moment, sort of coming to terms with the fact that it's just, it doesn't matter if it's Shaima or another city. Like they were always going to take it by force, and there was always going to be a massacre, and there is not much holy or sacred about them recovering the city from the Phantom.
And throughout this whole read of the trilogy, you both have asked me about the Phantom, and we still don't really have their perspective that I can recall, which is very interesting. I thought you don't have a whole lot from the. It's very one-sided, this whole conflict.
The same way we learn about the First Crusades through the Christian perspective, where we were the saviors, even though we were doing real bad things to people. I always think, like, whenever there's like a war or something going on, I think a lot about unintended consequences in this book. I think helped me think about that. Like, they're going to save a city, they become the monsters and just completely destroy the city and call it saving it. If you look back in history, there's a lot of that. And in current history, there's a lot of times where we'll try to do something and not fully think it through, and then we'll end up like immediately evacuating Iraq and leaving all our weapons there. Just things like that. There's a lot of themes in this book. I think every character kind of goes through their own theme in a way. And sometimes they intersect.
Was this always meant to be more than once? It wasn't. It was never meant to be just a trilogy, right? It couldn't have. It was always meant to be two different series.
Yeah, there was always more.
I think, if I understand it correctly, it was supposed to be 3 books. The first one being the Prince of Nothing, the second one, the Aspect Emperor, and then a third one without a title.
Wow.
Oh, you mean as far as series goes? The Prince of Nothing, Second Apocalypse, or no?
Well, if I remember correctly, Prince of Nothing was originally supposed to be just 1 book, but had to be made into a trilogy. So it's kind of like each of the sub-series was supposed to be like a single book, and then got expanded into like a sub-series. But I don't think that the first trilogy was ever supposed to be the whole thing. Like, there was always more.
When I remember, I thought it was supposed to be 2 trilogies and a duology.
Possibly.
The,
Yeah.
the duology is the thing that's never came yet. The darkness that comes after.
Wow. Yeah, lots of stuff.
Yeah, we didn't talk much about the battle. The Scarlet Spires making their way into the city behind their Java shield walls and just blowing every foundation to the ground to see who was inside. Trapping themselves. Pretty much all dying.
Yeah, I think they're gone, right? I think they
Rip the Lazarus.
Rest in peace. I mean,
R.I.P.
everyone I like in these books is gone.
Noir's still around. He's just in the dark.
Yeah. He seems to be out of the picture, at least for the moment. But yeah, Conf is gone. Sirius is gone. Eleazarus is gone. I mean, Iogus is still around, so there's at least some Scarlet Spires are still alive. I'm not sure how many survived. There should be at least a couple.
Well, and then we got Kellis using the third inaudible and using like what normally would just transport your voice and just transporting his whole body places.
Yeah.
Snapping behind people, cutting faces.
I completely missed the first time I read the book, I completely missed on the fact that he teleported himself from the labyrinth to Shaima. I don't know what I thought. I guess I just thought he ran really quickly, or there was like a shortcut tunnel.
Just appear both places. That's why time travel. Steve brought up time travel. Maybe he just time traveled there. They talked about like a white or a black gate that he stepped into before. I feel like it was Saraway was like coming at him or something right then. Who knows how it works? I don't think the mandate can do it.
I
They're not
mean,
smart enough for the third inaugurals yet, whatever they are.
as far as we know, no one can do it. I think Aklamian mentioned that allegedly there was some ancient non-man king who was able to do it.
Maybe you have to go to the Inkarai non-men war, read about it. That seemed like it was a 4-page section in the glossary.
That glossary is massive.
It's full of good little chunks of maybe useless information, maybe good things to know. I couldn't think of any good way of talking about it because there's just too much going on.
There's a ton. It's 100 pages long.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is just names of some obscure Kanryan or Sidoni lords that appear like on one page in the entire trilogy. But there's a couple of things like the non-man Inquiry Wars. There's a small section about the fan, like the fanonry, was the Phantom faith, the Phantom religion as well.
I don't know if this one has the dialects in it, but there's like a breakdown of the dialects and like root words. Like it gets deep. There's 50, 80 languages or something. I don't know.
Jeez.
Maybe hundreds.
I think the language tree is in the first book, at least in my editions anyway.
Maybe it'll show up again, I think, too.
Yeah. It took me until like the last 50 pages to realize there was a map of Shaima at the back. I was getting confused, all these gates and like positions of troops. And I was like, why is he making it so complicated? And then like, if only I had a map. And I was like, wait, is there a map? There was a map. So my bad. That it would have made things a lot clearer from the beginning.
You did better than I did. I didn't realize it until I was done. I was flipping through the appendix, and I was like, "Oh, there's a map here."
It was a very broad scoping battle. I think the big part of the battle took place like outside, and it was really only a Kamian that saved the Holy War, maybe, and Kellis in the end. But
Saban as well.
Yeah, I don't
King
know.
Saba.
Maybe it would have probably been a better fight between Confus and Saban had Kellis or had Akamian not just murdered a bunch of people and threw them all into disarray. Half of them were running away. He had no control over his army, and right when he regained it, he realized that Saban was about to cut his head off.
Yeah, it's I mean, that's an interesting question. I wonder if Confus's men would have defected if Akamian hadn't attacked them first. But I did get the impression that they were already unsure or questioning his command and quite reluctant to fight with the Phantom against other Inrithi.
Yeah, it's a hard question to put your faith-killing faith for the heathen. But then when they came down the hills, the fandom all kind of thought that it was going to be Conphis, and then they realized that they were all dead.
Oh, I mean, I would have preferred a different ending.
And I think if Kellis wouldn't have showed up, that most of the Scarlet Spires were either dead or fleeing, and pretty much the Sishwaran was in control. There's only a couple of them left, but they were the most powerful ones, and they would have just killed everyone in the city, probably. They had removed all their obstacles. All of the mages were dead. Except Eobus, wherever he was, hiding somewhere.
Waiting for...
Trying to control his Sith rank.
I mean, I bet that takes a lot of concentration. So do you think that Kellis summoned Saban or somehow manipulated Saban into coming to Shaima, but later so that he could ambush the Nance War? Because he wasn't supposed to be there. He was supposed to be in Karaskan.
Where he belongs.
Yeah, he can stay in Karaskan only once. He wanted to be a king, so he should be a king. He should not be going around decapitating emperors. The rightful emperors.
We definitely didn't get that answer, I guess. What made Saban decide to come? He's still alive, so maybe we'll hear more about Saban in the future.
Oh god, no.
Poor Saban.
Maybe you'll find some new characters to love, Katerina. Or maybe you did. Maybe Steve will. Maybe Sarsalis will show back up.
No. Hope not. He's gone. Hope he's gone for good.
Sarway just seems to throw her face back together all the time.
Yeah, she'll make a comeback.
There are some good characters in the Aspect Emperor, for sure, but I have to admit that there's just something about this trilogy that makes it so dear to me. And specifically about the characters. Like I don't feel like I could really relate to the characters in the second series as much as I do relate to Akamian or Asmonette or even Proyas. Newer. But maybe that's also just nostalgia. I don't know.
Maybe there's time.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll find out. So you are halfway through book 3 in that series, Katerina? Or 2?
I finished book 2. I have not started book 3, and I don't think I'm going to before we catch up together to where I finished, to where I stopped.
Nice.
I tried. I did try to finish it, but it's just...
It's a lot.
It's a lot. I mean, just reading 2 books from the same series at the same time feels weird already. And with this series specifically, there's just too much to keep track of. And it's also like a lot of like emotional things you have to process. It's like they're not easy reads. Like you need some time to recuperate, I think.
Well, that reminds me. What about the grim darkness of the book, Steve? Has it reached the most grim dark book you've ever read yet?
No.
There's still like 100,000 people alive, probably at least. There's probably more, but a lot of people died. Just not
if we're comparing just even trilogy to trilogy, I think as far as disturbing or dark, I think Empires of Dust might even be bleaker than this. What do you think, Katerina?
I would probably. I don't know. In terms of bleakness, probably I agree. I think there is still some hope at the end of the Thousandfold Thought.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know what exactly Kellis is going to do next, but at least the sense I got is that he will somehow try to save the world from the consult and prevent them from closing the world to the outside. And I mean, he's also already made some changes in the three C's, like in the societies. Like, he put Esmenet in charge of of his government, essentially, which is not something that would have been possible. Like, that something that wouldn't be possible for a woman, not to say a woman of like her background, to become. So I think there's still like there is some potential for change towards the better. There is some hope that Kellis means well, that he wants to do the good thing. Does he actually? Is he going to do it? I don't know. But there's still some, and you have a commune, I think, which, I mean, despite, I mean, where he ends up, I do find some hope in that. At last, he sees through Kellis's BS. That he discovers the truth, and even if that leaves him completely alone and depressed and without the love of his life, there is still something positive in him making that revelation. So I wouldn't say it's completely bleak.
That was a cool moment. Kellis talking about how within the scriptures can be rewritten. He is the truth, and then King being like, "Oh yeah, whatever. I hate you now. I'm leaving." And he just limps out on a cane, and they just let him go.
I'm renouncing
But
you.
wait, Kellis says, "What? Next time you come before me, you will bow."
That was very ominous.
I thought he was going to tell him next time you, or before me, you will die. That's what I expected him to say. But.
I mean, it's also interesting in that, well, clearly Kellis does not want to come in dead. Because if he wanted him dead, he could have killed him on the spot.
Yeah.
Same
So
with Nair. Same with what seem to be loose strings that Kellis leaves around. How loose are they, or are they really knots holding the other stuff together? Who knows? He talks about walking the probability trance, and even though he's grasped the thousandfold thought, some of the paths lead directly to catastrophic results, and some of them just go into shadow, but he knows they're not good paths somehow. So even his probability trance has its limits, whatever they are, whatever the probability trance is. He's talking about, when he's talking to Moindus, he's like, he was certain if he had eyes that they would dilute in and out as he skimmed his consciousness, I think it said, or something like that. Basically, as he went out of focus to walk the probability trance, but he didn't have eyes, so Kellis couldn't see it. He's the waterless Sishwaran. I guess the low water Sishwaran. That was one of the craziest parts to me. How knowing this, I thought he was going to be the all-powerful, like having been in the world for so long. There's no way he wasn't going to be so fragile in front of his son. But how was he to know that his heartlessness would make his magical powers worthless in the end?
That was a major miscalculation. But we were kind of led to believe that he was this all powerful, all knowing person. Like that's what we learned from Kellis. That's what Nior was thinking. So we were misled.
We learned that he was able to pass his dreams to the people he knew from Ishwal. Just not everybody there. All the people that he remembered before he got kicked out. And even that almost broke him, he said.
What else did you have in your notes? Katerina, anything else you had written down for us?
I'm looking through my notes. There's one quote from Confess, which was my favorite.
Right,
it's another iteration on the war's intellect. When it's when he's standing, I think he's like standing on a hill looking over the battlefield, and it's like, how could I ever have thought that there was something wrong with me? Like, obviously I'm the god, like I'm winning this. What was I thinking? And they're talking about war, and he's like, well, war is intellect, but men are stupid.
Yeah.
So I really like that. It made me laugh right before I cried.
Confess will be missed.
Yes, dearly. By me at least.
I left it at the part that I forgot when, but the men of the tusk like knocked back the phantom, and they're like, "Take your blood with you."
Oh yeah,
it was a good line.
Yeah, everybody laughed.
I like the quote: "If war does not kill the woman in us, it kills the man." That was pretty hardcore. Reminded me a lot of the old war movies I watched.
What happens if you're a woman? Oh.
Yeah, maybe the man and woman's the wrong word. Maybe it's the fight.
I mean, I know what they mean, but
It's true.
This world doesn't care about that. Women are barely allowed to wear boots.
Yeah.
We'll see if they get more power.
Do we have
any predictions for the future?
I honestly have no idea what's going to happen. I have no clue. Zero.
Anything you want out of the next series?
I want to know more about the arc. So we'll see. Well, cool.
This book had one of the craziest scenes ever in the book. It had two Dunning in a room together with conflicting opinions.
Yeah.
That was really great.
So how would you maybe not rate, but how would you compare the three books we read so far? Like, do you have a favorite? Has your ranking changed over time?
I think it's still Darkness. And this book would probably be, I don't know, that's tough. It'd probably go 1, 3, 2 in my list. Yeah. What about you guys? Did your opinions change?
No, I really like the last 100 pages of this book, though.
I think I did enjoy it better this time around. It was the only one out of the three that I didn't rate 5 stars on my first read. But this time I actually enjoyed it more than the Warrior Prophet. there were parts of the Warrior Prophet that I found dragged a little bit, especially the first half. This one has slower parts as well, but it also has some of my like favorite scenes of the. I mean, Darkness is still like S tier. Like it's one of my favorite, if not the favorite book of all time. Nothing beats that. But Thousandfold Thought has some of my favorite scenes in it as well. Especially the scenes between Naor and Conface, and then Kellis and Moengas. Those I think are really well written, and I look forward to them every time I read this book. I looked forward to reading them this time, and they were again like the parts of it that I enjoyed the most. So I think like my I think my ranking did change. I also think reading it slowly helped, because especially the latter half, there's a lot to unpack, and I did go through it pretty quickly the first time I read it. So I did enjoy. I think having more time to process everything helped with my enjoyment as well.
And the fact that you also have a lot of questions, you said at the beginning. See, Steve doesn't even know the questions you could possibly have, so that would add some enjoyment to the read, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but I have the impression that I won't be able, like, I should most certainly finish The Aspect Emperor before I go back and reread The Thousandfold Thought. Like, that seems the only way how I can get some understanding.
This is true. There's the companion book, I think I mentioned it before. It's written by like a fan, but it's 150 pages of just afterthoughts, kind of like the appendix, but different. More like a history text, kind of.
Well, we'll find out more next week.
In 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks, sorry. 2 weeks. Yeah, 2 weeks.
And we should definitely find a time to read the Atrocity Tales. I don't know if it's after this first book of the second series or after the second book. I'll try to remember exactly when. He said when was the best time to read it, or when you wouldn't not. There's a time where there's some spoilers in there, but then some of the spoilers get revealed. They're fun. They're fun little stories. I feel like they're only like 20 pages. Some of them 30 pages.
Define fun in Bakker's world.
Yeah.
I think one of the Atrocity Tales has one of the coolest revelations of the whole series, of the whole second apocalypse world, that I don't think ever even comes up in books.
Right, that got me intrigued.
Which means you'd never even know this revelation. Oh well, actually, maybe it does get mentioned very vaguely once at some point later. But it's crazy. It's a crazy thing. I want to see what you guys think about it.
Yeah, we'll find out when the best time to read it would be. Would be good.
I'm down.
Yeah.
I watched the interview with Bakker a couple days ago where he was just talking about his books. I think it was like the SFW convention one. And he was saying the only thing to be certain of is that we don't know shit. Certainty is a complete lie. Whoever says it is the first one you can call bullshit on.
There was a very nice quote about certainty somewhere in this book.
Yeah, that interview with Bakker was real good. He's talking about, like, the guy asks him how he came up with the world, and he's like, what did he say? a couple good bags of weed and a lot of free time. He
Really?
talking about being in high school, just smoking and trying to come up with Dungeons and Dragons stuff for his like brothers.
Wow.
Makes me think I tried too hard in high school.
Yeah.
He goes on to say that he never thought that something he thought of as a dope smoking adolescent would ever like come to mean anything to him. He always knew he would probably be like. I even think he said being an author wasn't something he thought he would do. I think he just thought he would be a philosophy professor somewhere.
Maybe he's both.
He definitely has taught some philosophy at some college in Canada. I don't remember where. There's actually a couple long videos of him giving lectures at colleges too.
Do you want me to read the quote about certainty?
Yeah.
Set aside your conviction, for the feeling of certainty is no more a marker of truth than the feeling of will is a marker of freedom. Deceived men always think themselves certain, just as they always think themselves free. This is simply what it means to be deceived.
So many great quotes.
On the very last chapter, the line is something about conviction. Verily, it is conviction that kills, is how it ended. I don't remember, but it's kind of about the same thing. He just reiterates the same thing in different
ways.
High-level, quotable ways.
It is very quotable. He is very quotable if he wants to be.
He had a Twitter account. It was called the Devil's Chirp, and he would do like current politics, but he would like use the Bakker spin and put it into like a quotable thing, and they were epic. It's taken off Twitter now, so I could never find him. I feel like he might have posted them on his blog so long time ago sometimes. But it was fun listening to him contemplate the current world through Irwa Tellis lens.
Yeah. Cool, yeah. It's, in 2 weeks, we'll start the Judging Eye. Excited for it. So, Daniel, so where can people not get in touch with you?
In the comment section here. Okay. Definitely not restricted, and I'll probably respond. Or on page 2.
And Katerina, where can people get in touch with you?
You'll also find me on the Page Chewing forum, and I'm also on Instagram at The Errand.
Awesome. Has anybody contacted you there by just out of curiosity? Like, hey, I heard you on the talk about
Not that I'm aware.
Book. Oh, okay.
But I'm more than happy to get in touch with you if you want to chat about the Second Apocalypse or any other book series or whatever.
Cool. Thanks everybody for listening and for hanging out with us through the first trilogy. It's been a hell of a ride. So looking forward to the next series. So we'll see everyone in 2 weeks.